Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Candid with Partha. Today I have with me senior journalist Sahu from Odisha. Very recently he has come up with a biography of our President of India, Droupadi Murmu. Let's know more about his work as a journalist and as a writer who has an experience of over 30 years. Sir, welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be on your show.
Sir, on the very onset, I'd like to congratulate you on the book.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, at the very beginning, I'd like to know something about the book. How did you come up with the idea that you'll write the book about our president? Just can you just share
No,
the?
in fact, it was not me who came up with the idea. I had no plans of writing a book or anything. The proposal actually came from the publishers. 3 days after Madam Droupadi Murmu was nominated as the NDA candidate for presidential elections, I got a call from Mr. Chirag Thakkar, who is the commissioning editor with Penguin India, and he asked me whether I would be interested in writing a biography of the president, would-be president, since the election had not taken place. She was would-be president, but it was clear that she is going to become the president given the numbers in parliament and in the state assemblies. It was clear even at that point that she is going to be the president. So I was pleasantly surprised, and I immediately said yes, I would love to do that. And I still don't know, even 2 months after the book was released, I still don't know how they zeroed in on me to write this biography. Maybe they must have asked some Delhi-based journalist who know me, or somebody could have suggested my name, or maybe they could have done some inquiries with some senior Odisha-based journalist or other people. But finally, they decided that I should be the person, and they asked me to start researching immediately, even before the contract was signed. He said the contract signing formalities will take some time, but you can start working on the gathering material for the book right away. So that's how it happened. And I submitted my manuscript in the middle of December last year. And the book was finally launched on 20th of June, which happened to be the president's birthday. And it was also a big occasion in Odisha because that was the Rath Yatra day. So, lakhs of people congregate in Puri for Rath Yatra. So there were two big occasions, and I had suggested that they were planning to release the book in June sometime, but I suggested that let us do it on 20th because that will be a big occasion for people of Odisha and for the president herself because it was her birthday. And my publishers accepted my proposal, and that's when it was finally launched.
Sir, since writing a book demands a lot of research work and a lot of study, tell us something about the kind of research that you have put in.
One of the problems that I faced while researching for the book was there was not much written material available on the would-be president at that point of time. Now there is plenty of material, but at the point when I started researching, there was very little except for a few media reports which had appeared since he was named as the presidential candidate. And before that, there were some interviews on YouTube which I found interviews to television channels she had given in the past, mostly when she was governor of Jharkhand. And then there were a few speeches of her I found on YouTube. So apart from that, there was very little written text, no book, no long article or anything. So I had to actually devise my own way of researching, in the sense because since I realized there is not much written material available in the public domain, so I had to bank on the account of people who had known her since her childhood or had worked closely with her when she was a government servant, when she was a teacher in a school, and then finally when after she joined politics, her political colleagues both inside her party and also in the Biju Janata Dal, because when she was elected as the MLA for the first time, there was a coalition government in Odisha headed by Mr. Naveen Patnaik, and it was a BJD BJP coalition government. She became a minister after winning her very first election in 2000, and that was also the election when Naveen Babu came to power. She became a minister of the Commerce and Transport Department. So she worked with both people of BJP and people who are with BJD. So I talked to as many people as I possibly could. Many of them were based in Bhubaneswar. Then I went down to her native place, uh, Uparbeda village. I went down to her in-laws place, which is a village called Pahadpur, which is not very far off from her own village. And then I spent time in Rairangpur, which she represented in the assembly. Quite some time in Rairangpur, meeting people who had known her very closely, worked with her in the past. And then finally, I went to Ranchi and stayed there about a week or so. And I was fortunate that I got to meet many people who had seen her at work from very close quarters while she was governor of Jharkhand for about 6 years. And the list of people I met there included people from the street uh, to top officials and politicians. I couldn't meet the chief minister, but I met some of the ministers in his cabinet and some party leaders, and then some former bureaucrats who had worked with her when she was governor. Then I got to speak to several people who were employed in Raj Bhavan who had seen her daily routine. So that's how I made up for the absence of written material by meeting as many people and as I possibly could, and getting extracting as much as I possibly could from them, so that I can I just allowed them to speak. I didn't restrict them in any manner, even when they were talking about something else straight from the path, as you can say. I didn't hold them back, or I just gave them a free rein so that I would get the whole thing, even if it lasts long. I was hopeful that I will get some interesting nuggets during the conversation, and I realized that that was the best way to do it. Allow them to speak and use what you need in the book.
So, uh, what was the reaction of the president when you gifted her the copy? And
Uh,
after,
you will be surprised to know that I haven't met the president yet. Even
okay,
2 months after the release of the book, I am yet to meet the president. Of course, I have sought time from Rashtrapati Bhavan to go and present a copy to her, but uh, she has got a copy already. Somebody has presented her a copy on my behalf when she was here last month in July to last week. That's when there was this retired IS officer who used to be her principal secretary when she was governor, and they had the best of terms. So she had invited this former principal secretary to meet her, and this person went with a copy of my book and presented her. So I'm sure she has already got a copy,
I
but
might have
I
then
haven't had the opportunity of presenting a
I
copy.
might have then mistaken that photograph to be you actually. So, sir, while we write something, maybe it's a fictional thing or a non-fictional thing, there are always this kind of an apprehension that what if the final material does not come out to be the way the publisher want or I want? Were you also
Yes.
apprehensive about the
No,
book?
one of the things that I was acutely aware of right through the process of writing the book, there was actually there were two contrary pulls. Uh, One was to respect the office that she holds. Rashtrapati, the President of India is the first citizen, she is the head of the constitution, and you can't take liberties with her like you do with other politicians, and you have to respect the office. And by the time I started writing, she was already president. She was elected in July, so she was already president by the time I started actual writing process. So I had to respect the president's office, and at the same time, as a journalist, I had to be careful not to appear as a hagiography. It should not appear as a hagiography, all praise and no. Of course, during my conversation with all the people that I met during the research part, I hardly heard anything, any person speaking even a word of uh, censure or anything. Everybody was all praise for her. So there was very little I could have done as a journalist. So I have tried to be as even-handed as possible. And there are people who are very skeptical about her becoming president and whether it would change the fate of tribals in India. So I also spoke to those people and gave them, in fact, I have devoted the entire last chapter to getting the views of people, tribal leaders, academicians who are working on tribal issues, who are studying or researching tribal issues, and of course, activists who are uh, fighting for tribal rights, and try to get their views on whether they think Mrs. Droupadi Murmu's elevation as president would mean something for the tribals at large, whether their fate will change or nothing will change. So some people were very skeptical, some were very hopeful. So I have tried to give all sorts of opinion that exist in the country. But I don't know how far I have been successful in balancing these two contrary pulls. But the feedback that I've got so far in the 2 months that it has been in the public domain, both from my publishers and from other people who have read or reviewed the book, has been good. And I think I have been able to strike a balance between these two extremes.
Sir, the title of our book or any creative work is very important.
Yeah.
So, was the title of your book chosen by you, or it
No,
was
no.
published?
I didn't choose the title. The publishers decided on the title. I only wrote the content, but the title was entirely their decision.
Sir, coming back to journalism, you have been in this field for over 3 decades. So, could you just tell us how was it like when you started off as a journalist, and how has been this journey so far been?
It has been a pretty long journey. In fact, you said more than 30 years. I should be a little more specific. And I'll be completing 38 years in journalism this November.
Okay.
Okay. So it has been a long time, donkey's years, you can say. The biggest difference in the time since I started has been There was only print. When I started in 1985, media amounted to print journalism. There were only newspapers. And though Doordarshan was there, but generally very few people watched Doordarshan. And radio, there was no news, no TV stations. Internet was still, even mobile was quite some years away. Internet was still further away. So it was a completely different world, and our news cycle was tailored to a morning edition newspaper. So once you finished your day's work by late evening, say 8 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever, after that, once the copy is closed, till the next morning, you had nothing to do. So the next day you woke up and started searching for news by speaking to people, going to places, meeting people. That's And news gathering was a very difficult process because there were no mobiles, only land phones. And when I started my journalism, I didn't even have a land phone at home. I acquired a land phone 5, 6 years after I started journalism. So it was very difficult. News gathering was not easy. Now it has become so easy. Sitting at home, you can get all the news. You can interview people like you are doing. You can get pictures. You can get videos. Everything while sitting at home. Things have become more definitely easier, but the standard of journalism, I think, has gone down because large sections of the media now are compromised for various reasons, for political reasons, for commercial reasons, and the ownership pattern has changed so much in the last 30, 40 years that now you see the corporates coming in a big way to own the media. And of course, political ownership was there even earlier. But in those days, even when a politician owned a newspaper, uh, it didn't really mean that you have to support everything or couldn't write anything against him or be even-handed. There was some leverage given to the editorial staff, but now it is absolutely, it's terrible working in a regular media house. That's why I chose to become a freelancer some 6 years back.
You have worked with various organizations like BBC and some of the big names. Do you think that the houses that once used to call themselves neutral, fearless, has also been compromised to an extent?
Yes, yes, of course, they have been compromised. Many of them, in fact, the houses, media houses, which used to be independent, you you have seen how the NDTV was taken over by the Adanis. NDTV was one channel which had kept the flag flying as it were. After Modi ji took over as Prime Minister, they were virtually the lone channel which had maintained a semblance of independence. But you know how it was taken over and the Roys went out of the management, and now it has just become an extension of the corporate house that it owns, that is owned by. So that's how the Reliance company now owns, I think, more than 50% of the national media.
Right.
Adani's own a major channel and other media houses. It's the same here in Odisha as well. There are corporates taking over, and once politicians will give you a little breathing space or leverage. But when it's a corporate house taking over a media house, I think the scope for independent journalism is squeezed so much that any self-respecting journalist will feel suffocated in that kind of an atmosphere. And many have actually chosen to go out, do something independently. Some people have started YouTube channels, some people have graduated into writing books or other things. So that's how things have actually, the standard of journalism has gone down, and the scope for independent journalism has got very squeezed. There is
Sir,
very little space available now for somebody to voice his opinion openly and boldly.
what what we have witnessed in Assam right now is that anybody with a camera opens a Facebook page and they
Yeah,
take up a name and a news channel starts a portal actually. So is the scenario similar in Odisha?
exactly. It's the same. I'm sure it's the same all over India. Odisha, just the same thing. Anybody, any one who picks up a camera, even a mobile camera will do, as long as it's a decent standard camera. Even mobile cameras you find, and I'm surprised there must be more than 50 channels. Then there are web channels. Apart from regular satellite channels, there are dozens and dozens of web channels which also have reporters on the ground covering news. So it's a very crowded place now, and you feel a little awed by the presence of so many people, many of whom you don't even know. Maybe they know you, but you don't know many people. And whenever I'm in a journalistic gathering, I find myself a little out of place actually.
Sir, coming back to you, you have also written screenplays for documentaries, films. Could you tell us something, some experience, and the kind of document and the screenplays that you've written for the.
I have written plenty of screenplays actually in three languages: Odia, Hindi, and English. And my journey into screenwriting started sometime in the early 90s, when I had a senior colleague who is like an elder brother to me. His name is Mr. Sampad Mahapatra. He was making a telefilm for Doordarshan, and it was to be made in Hindi. So he initially had someone from Delhi to write the script. Uh, he came here, stayed here for a week. They had discussions, but somehow things didn't work out between them. And he finally approached me, said, Sandeep, you will write the script. But I said, I am not that good in Hindi. I can speak the language, write the language also, but I'm not very good. My Hindi is very average, not good. But he said, I don't need a Hindi literate here. You will write in the language, common man's language, and I'm sure you can do it. So he insisted that I write the script. Both of us went together to Puri, hired a hotel room, stayed there for a week, and we finished the script there. That's how it started. And in the years since then, I must have written about 100 scripts in Odia, Hindi, English all together. Must have written, and it has been a very enjoyable experience. And some of the people with whom I have worked, they've always come back to me whenever they had something with a script to be done. They've always come back to me, and I'm happy I've been able to. Apart from writing the script, I also get involved with the filmmaking process, because I have ambitions of making a documentary or a short film or something in future, if God willing, of course. I never planned to write a book, but I have planned to make a film someday.
Very often from Northeast have this complaint that our culture, our art and literature has been not portrayed well in the mainstream. They call the Bollywood or the indie film industry. Same is seen in case of Odia language as well.
Yes.
So Recently, one series came out in Sony Live, the Jengabaru
Yes. Yes.
Curse. Have you watched the series, sir?
No, I haven't watched it so far, but I definitely plan to watch it. It's made by a friend of mine, Mr. Nilamadhava Panda, and I would love to. I've seen some of his earlier work, and I've liked them. So I'm keen to watch this one as well, but I haven't found the time so far. Was busy over the last few days, so hopefully in the next week or so I should be watching it. And the whatever I've heard about it, whatever I've read about it, has been very encouraging. In fact, whetted my appetite. So I'm very keen, and I'll watch it soon. Thank you.
So, why I brought this issue up is that while I was watching it, I found some words similar to Assamese. I was really very
Yes, yes,
intrigued by the
you will be surprised. There are so many common, not just in language, even in culture. There is so much of similarity between Odisha and, in fact, when I went to Assam, I felt completely at home. I felt completely there. I watched Bihu dance performance and other folk dances, and I was immediately reminded. About folk dance forms back in Odisha. So there is a lot of similarity in the language, in the culture, in the food habits between Odias and Assamese, and I've really somehow felt an affinity with Assam, though I've been there just once, but I have great regard for the people of Assam and love for them. Mr. J.B. Patnaik, who was governor in Assam. So he has also been a great ambassador for Assamese, Assam, and friendship between cultural exchanges between Odisha and Assam.
Sir, you have been a journalist. You have written screenplays. Now you have written a book. How do you manage so many roles? How do you juggle between the roles, sir?
I have been like that since the beginning. I'm happy doing two, three things simultaneously. Never had a problem, but your priorities change, your situations change, and that's how you. When as I told you at the beginning, when I started, there was only print. Then I got into radio journalism in '95 when I started working for the BBC, and I just loved the medium. 2 years after that, I got a break in a TV channel. So I started working on TV. Then finally, online journalism or web journalism. So I've explored all of them, enjoyed all of them. But if you ask me, of all the mediums that I've worked in, I have loved the radio medium the most. Uh,
Any specific reason for that?
I'm not too sure, but maybe when there is a television camera focused on you, maybe you get a little conscious about your looks, about your pose, about your the crowd around or something. But when you are doing it for radio, there is no fear of being watched by someone. Maybe that's why I have given my best while reporting for radio, whether it is from the ground or sitting at your home. In fact, many a time while doing long two ways, someone sitting at the Delhi office or the London office interviewing you. So I close my eyes and answer because that helps me concentrate better. So maybe that is the reason somehow I found most comfortable.
Sir, before we leave, I think there is few things. One special thing I have to ask. When you completed the book and it came to you and you showed it to your family, how did they react to it?
I'll first tell you how I felt when I first held a copy of the book. I had gone on a week-long vacation to Bali with family, my wife and daughter. My daughter, of course, stayed back for another week, me and my wife came back. And when I reached home, I saw a packet, a parcel at the doorstep. So I could immediately make out that this must be the complimentary copies sent by Penguin. So even before opening the lock to enter the house, I first opened the packet and I was proved right. It was in fact 10 copies of my book parceled by Penguin as complimentary copies. And when I first held the copy, the feeling was out of the world, because though I have been 38 years in journalism, this was my first book. In fact, till now, it is the only book that I have written. So it was an out of the world feeling, and I really, there is nothing even remotely comparable to that feeling. I've written plenty of articles, plenty of other stuff, scripts, all kinds of stuff. And I've got plenty of appreciation for that work as well. But writing a book, holding a copy of your own book, and watching it displayed at a bookstall or a railway station or an airport or something, that is an exceptional feeling, and it really gives me a real high every time I watch it. Yesterday, a friend had posted a picture of a book stall in Delhi airport where my book was on display. It really cockled my heart. That's a feeling that I've never got before. And my family, of course, my wife was was very supportive right through the writing of that book, and my daughter was the happiest. Even more than me, my daughter was the happiest that her father had finally turned author, and she ordered a few copies and then got them signed by me to present to her friends.
So, do you have any plans to write one more book or maybe more in the future?
In fact, I propose to write more than one. I propose to write as many as I possibly can, and I have already decided on what my next book would be. But right now, I am busy with the Odia translation of this biography of the president, uh, which I am doing myself. The Penguin have tied up with the local publishers to get an Odia edition published. Of course, they will also be having in editions in other languages. But since I'm an Odia myself and I've started my career in Odia journalism, they thought the author should do it, the Odia translation. So right now I'm working on that. Once I finish this, I'll start research work on my second book, and I propose to spend the best part of my time, the maximum possible time that is left in my life, in writing books. I hope to come out with 2-3 books in the next 4-5 years.
All the best, sir. We
Thank
hope to
thank
see
you
and
so
read more
much.
from you.
Thank you so much, Partha. It has been a pleasure talking to you after so long.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for making out time and coming to my show. This was Candid with Partha's today's show. We hope to be bringing some more guests in my future episodes. Till then, keep watching and keep supporting my channel. Thank you.